welcome back to Scripture and Prophecy. I'm Sean, your host. Today it's Monday, March 12th, 2018. Website is www.scriptureandprophecy.com, and that's where you go to find the archives. That's where you go to support this mission of truth, and there's a lot of other things on there. I keep talking about the censorship, how YouTube is censoring basically all people who create videos and content based on truth, and specifically even Christian content. Mine has been censored for a long time now, and it's gotten pretty bad. And so very small percentage of people, I think, are even seeing the videos show up in their feeds and things like that. And I bring all that up at the beginning of this podcast to say you should consider, or I would like to ask you to consider, going to the website and just putting in your signing up for the email list. You put in your email, and I send maybe one email a month, sometimes two, and all it is just to remind people of the new episodes that are available. But that may be the only way to reach out to people with content and with truth at some point in the future. I would say that YouTube would be the first thing to go. But anyway, I don't want to dig too deep into that conversation because I want to talk about Exodus chapter 8 today. We're going to read from the King James Bible, and we're dealing with the second plague. We're going to be dealing with the plague of frogs. And then we have, gnats and flies. And so that's what we're going to be dealing with today. 32 verses, so we're going to be doing the second, third, and fourth plague today as Pharaoh continues to refuse to let God's people go 3 days journey into the wilderness to worship him. And we continue to see God create these crazy plagues and miracles, and then the magicians continue to recreate them, which I still think is extremely strange and odd. These dark forces and some of the power that dark forces have, even if it's a sleight of hand and it's just deception, it's still very, very powerful. But there's going to be one that God does that the magicians are unable to recreate, which I think is very, very interesting. All right, so without further delay, let's dig right in. We're going to read from the King James Bible this morning, which is our authority text, what I view as the authoritative English text, although we do read from the Art Scroll Tanakh as well. All right, let's dig right in. Verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Go unto Pharaoh, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. And if thou refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all thy borders with frogs. And the rivers shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into thy houses, and into thy bedchambers, and upon thy bed, and into thy house of thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thy ovens, and into thy kneading troughs. And the frogs shall come up both on thee, and upon thy people, and upon all thy servants. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Say unto Aaron, Stretch forth thy hand, and with thy rod over the streams, over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up upon the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments, and brought up frogs upon the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron, and said, Entreat the Lord, that he may take away the frogs from me, and from my people, and I will let the people go, that they may do sacrifice unto the Lord. And Moses said unto Pharaoh, Glory over me. When shall I entreat for thee, and for thy servants, and for thy people, to destroy the frogs from thee and thy houses, that they may remain in the river only? All right, let's stop real quick here. It's kind of a weird verse, isn't it? Pharaoh's asking Moses, hey, go and go speak to the Lord and ask him to remove these frogs, and I'll let you go. And Moses says, glory over me. When shall I entreat for thee and for thy servants and for thy people to destroy? So Moses says, glory over me, and then he asks a question, when should I do this? And I was looking at the commentary, and if you'll bear with me for a minute, I'm just going to pull it up here. So we're talking about, give me a second here. I want to make sure I quote this right. Because in the Tanakh, it says, glory yourself over me, for when should I entreat for you, for your servants, and for your people, to excess the frogs from you and from your house? And the commentator says that he's saying, make a request that you feel I cannot fulfill, and if you're right, you will be able to claim that I failed your test. Tell me the moment when you want the frog infestation to end. And so what Moses is saying is, give me a specific time. That way you'll know that it's the Lord, right? Don't just say, I'm not just going to ask and then they disappear in a couple of days and over time and you say, okay, they just kind of went away. Tell me specifically what day or when exactly you want them gone, and then you'll know it's the Lord. That's what Moses is doing here in verse 9 in your King James Bible. Strangely enough, it's verse 5 in the Tanakh. All right. And Moses said unto Pharaoh, glory over me, when shall I entreat for thee and for thy servants and for thy people to destroy the frogs from thee and thy houses, that they may remain in the river only? And he said, tomorrow. And he said, be it according to thy word, that thou mayest know that there is none like unto the Lord our God. That is to say, there is none like Yahovah our Elohim. Verse 11, and the frogs shall depart from thee, and from thy houses, and from thy servants, and from thy people. They shall remain in the river only. And Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried unto the Lord because of the frogs which he had brought against Pharaoh. And the Lord did according to the word of Moses. And the frogs died out of the houses, and out of the villages, and out of the fields. And they gathered them together upon heaps, and the land stank. But when Pharaoh saw that there was respite, he hardened his heart, and hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. So the minute that Pharaoh sees that the frogs are gone, his heart hardens again. He says, well, I'm not going to let them go. Now this problem's over. There's no desperate need to let them go at this point, right? Verse 16. And the Lord said unto Moses, say unto Aaron, stretch out thy rod, and smite the dust of the land, and it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And they did so, for Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod, and smote the dust of the earth, and it became lice in man and in beast. All the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. So there was lice upon man and upon beast. Then the magicians said unto Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord said. So here we have the magicians, or as the Tanakh says, the necromancers, trying to recreate this lice issue, just to show that, it's not the God of the universe or a one true God. Anybody with power can do this. They were unable to do it. And even said to Pharaoh, this is the finger of God. But Pharaoh's heart is still hard, nonetheless. Verse 20. And the Lord said unto Moses, rise up early in the morning, and stand before Pharaoh. Lo, he cometh forth to the water. And say unto him, thus saith the Lord, let my people go, that they may serve me. Else if thou wilt not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies upon thee, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thy houses. And the houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground whereon they are. Now, if you're reading a King James Bible, and you get to verse 21. And it says, "Else, if thou wilt not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies upon thee." You'll notice that the word flies is in italics. Now, in the King James Bible, whenever they add a word to help with context and understanding, which is necessary when you translate a language, you can see that the word flies is in italic, meaning that the word flies is not found in the text. As a matter of fact, if you pull up, if you grab the Tanakh, it just says swarms. I will send swarms upon thee. So why do the King James translators add the word flies? Well, it's and also most modern translations, newer translations, will just say swarms. They won't say flies, right? So where do the King James writers or translators get this? Where do they get that it's flies? Are they just making an assumption? They just think, well, it's probably flies. We'll just add the word flies in there. Well, no, that is not the case. Because all you have to do is read your whole Bible, and you'll know that it was, in fact, various swarms of flies. And how do we know this? Well, first we can go to Psalm 78:45. We're talking about what happened there. Let's start with verse 43. So Psalm 78, verse 43 says this, and then we'll finish on verse 45. It says, "How the hand wrought his signs in Egypt, and his wonders in the field of Zoan, and turned the rivers into blood, and their floods that they could not drink. He sent diverse sorts of flies among them, which devoured them, and frogs which destroyed them." So there's one passage that says that that God sent flies. And if you need a second witness, no problem. Let's go to Psalm 105. Verse 31 says the same thing, but I'm going to start with verse 29. "He turned their waters into blood, and slew their fish. Their land brought forth frogs in abundance in the chambers of their kings. He spake, and there came diverse sorts of flies and lice in all their coast." So as you can see, it's plenty of places in the Bible, there's two places in Psalms that just kind of clear that information up. So as the King James translators are going through, they already know this information. They already know that it's flies according to the two passages in the book of Psalms, and so they insert the word flies so that you know what the swarms were. Now, what kind of flies? That's definitely possible. That's definitely up for debate. Both Psalms say diverse sorts of flies, so it's probably a mixture of all kinds of different types of flies. But at any rate, verse 21 says, "Else, if thou wilt not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies upon thee, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thy houses, and the houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground wherein they are." All right, let's move on to verse 22. And I will sever in that day the land of Goshen, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, to the end that thou mayest know that I am the Lord in the midst of the earth. So he's going to send the flies, but to show his power, and show that he is the one true God. It's not the flies will not even bother to go into the portions of the land where his people Israel are. Verse 23, "And I will put a division between my people and thy people. Tomorrow shall this sign be." And the Lord did so. And there came a grievous swarm of flies into the house of Pharaoh, and into his servants' houses, and into all the land of Egypt. The land was corrupted by reason of the swarm of flies. And Pharaoh called for Moses and for Aaron, and said, "Go ye, sacrifice to your God in the land." And Moses said, "It is not meet so to do, for we shall sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians to the Lord our God. Lo, shall we sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians before their eyes, and they will not stone us? we will go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God, as he shall command us. And Pharaoh said, I will let you go, that you may sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness, only you shall not go very far away, entreat for me. And Moses said, Behold, I go out from thee, and I will entreat the Lord, that the swarms of flies may depart from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people tomorrow. But let not Pharaoh deal deceitfully any more, and not letting the people go to sacrifice to the Lord. And Moses went out from Pharaoh to entreat the Lord, and the Lord did according to the word of Moses. And he removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. There remained not one. And Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time also, neither would he let the people go. And that is the end of chapter 8. And so Moses warns him, okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to talk to Yahuwah. Talk to Yahuwah, and make sure you don't deal with us deceitfully this time. Because the last time you said, okay, just please go talk to your God and have these frogs removed and I'll let you go, and you didn't do that. So this time, don't pull that same stunt. Warning Pharaoh of what would be coming next. And, of course, the verse ends. The chapter ends with Pharaoh indeed hardening his heart again. And we'll have to wait till next week to see what happens in chapter 9. But just to give you a little preview, we're going to have livestock dying. We're going to have the plague of hail that falls upon the people. And that's what we'll be dealing with in chapter 9 next week. Lord willing, I'll be back again probably on Wednesday with our study in the gospel, and then Friday will either be a reading out of a Dead Sea Scroll or the Apocrypha. We're still working on Second Esdras, or it'll be a new show. It just depends on how the week plays out. Again, your support is much needed, much and very, very helpful. You can do that, scriptureandprophecy.com. I'm still working all this out in my head of how I want to go about doing the Hebrew class, which will be available for all supporters of this mission of truth. There'll be a couple of videos, about 10 minutes long each, launched every month, just to kind of help people who are interested in learning how to read and write in Hebrew, who want to be able to pick up a Hebrew Bible and recognize words and know how to pronounce them. And so the goal is to have the first 2 or 3 videos available it's for the people who support this mission by April 1st. So less than a month from now, the goal is to have that up, and I'll do an announcement video and podcast of some kind, letting people know that it has in fact began, and how you go about getting access to it. So, of course, this is all Lord willing. The scriptures say, do not say that I'm going to do this, and that tomorrow, because tomorrow is promised to no man. And the truth is, we just don't know. We just don't know what the day's going to bring. So, Lord willing, I plan to do all these things. Well, that's all I got for you this morning. I hope that this podcast has blessed you. Peace and grace be with all of you. And until next time, God bless.